The Day of Truth, Chapter 1, The Flare. At first, nobody noticed. In the small, sleepy town of Greenville, Harold Jenkins was pouring milk into his cereal when he said, to no one in particular, "I don't even like Cheerios." He paused, spoon halfway to his mouth, and frowned. That was odd. He loved Cheerios. Didn't he? 2 streets over, Martha Simmons leaned out her front door, waved to her neighbor Eleanor, and called, "Nice dress, Eleanor. You look like a depressed pineapple." Eleanor froze mid-wave, her expression one of startled betrayal. "Excuse me?" Martha blinked. Never mind." She slammed the door, clutching her forehead. What had just come out of her mouth? Across the globe, similar moments began to unfold, unnoticed at first, like tiny drops of rain before the downpour. A toddler in Tokyo told his mother, "Your cooking is terrible." A taxi driver in New York muttered to his passenger, "I'm charging you extra because you're annoying." In London, a man proposed to his girlfriend on one knee and then added, "It's just because I'm tired of dating apps." The girlfriend stared. "What? I didn't mean..." But he did mean it. They all meant it. At precisely 9:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, astronomers at the Langley Observatory stared at their monitors as the solar flare erupted across the surface of the sun. It was a big one, beautiful and terrifying, with arcs of fiery plasma looping into space. "Whoa," said Dr. Natalie Singh, adjusting her glasses. "That's impressive. Should we issue a warning for GPS and communications interference?" her assistant asked. "Probably," Dr. Singh replied, still captivated by the swirling flare on the screen. "But it's not like anyone will notice. It's just another Tuesday." It wasn't. By 10:30 a.m., the effects began to spread, subtle at first, barely detectable. In an office tower in Chicago, Karen Matthews, a marketing executive, sat in a meeting room surrounded by her colleagues. "I think this campaign is brilliant," said Bob from accounting. Karen turned her head sharply, unable to stop herself. "No, you don't. You think it's a waste of money and you hate my ideas." The room fell silent. Bob's face turned crimson. I never said that," he stammered. "But you were thinking it." Bob opened his mouth to protest, but found himself blurting, "Fine. Yes, I hate it. I think it's garbage." A junior executive gasped audibly. "Oh my God, I've been stealing office supplies for 6 months." Karen's eyes widened. "Why would you admit that?" "I don't know," the executive cried. "I can't stop." And that was when the CEO burst into the room. "Enough. You're all useless anyway. I don't even know what half of you do here." Within hours, the strange phenomenon became impossible to ignore. Across every continent, people were saying things they never intended to say, confessions pouring out like water from a burst dam. News anchors stuttered their way through live broadcasts. "Good evening, I'm Tom Franks, and I don't actually watch the news. I just read the teleprompter." Talk show hosts froze mid-monologue. "I'm only laughing because the producers told me to." Social media, of course, was the first to catch on. Memes appeared within minutes. A man tweeted, "Help! I just told my boss I hate him, and now I think I'm unemployed. Truth Day." Another posted, "Wife asked me how she looked. I answered, pray for me." Trending hashtags emerged instantly. Honestly 2024, Truthgate, and Why Am I Saying This topped the charts. As the hours passed, scientists scrambled to explain the anomaly. Was it neurological, psychological, a virus? "It's the solar flare," muttered Dr. Singh, staring at her screens in disbelief. "Somehow it's interfering with us, with our brains." Her assistant gawked at her. "But how?" "I don't know," she admitted, "and I wish you'd stop breathing so loudly." In Greenville, Harold Jenkins sat at his kitchen table, staring down at his soggy Cheerios. "I really don't like Cheerios," he whispered. And somewhere in the universe, the sun burned on, indifferent to the chaos it had unleashed. Chapter 2. The Early Reactions. By noon, it was clear that something was terribly wrong, or perfectly right, depending on who you asked. In homes, offices, cafes, and parks across the world, conversations descended into awkward confessions, brutal honesty, and unintended comedy. At Greenville Elementary School, third-grade teacher Mrs. Kowalski clapped her hands to get her students' attention. "Quiet down, class. I know you're all excited about lunch, but first, let's finish our lesson on the solar system." A boy in the back raised his hand. "Mrs. Kowalski, my dad says Pluto isn't a planet because scientists are just making things up to stay relevant." She blinked. "Well, that's not exactly, but it's true, isn't it?" Mrs. Kowalski stared at the child and blurted, "Honestly, I have no idea. I just teach what the textbook says because I need a paycheck. The children gasped. A little girl whispered, I knew it. Teachers are just grown-ups in disguise. In downtown Chicago, Karen Matthews sat at her desk scrolling through Twitter, which had officially turned into a war zone. Her phone buzzed with news alerts faster than she could keep up. CNN breaking news. World leaders experiencing sudden outbursts of honesty. Fox News, is this the apocalypse? Our experts debate. BBC, solar flare mystery. Why can't people stop telling the truth? Karen refreshed her feed and scrolled past the trending hashtags. #Honestly2024 had been overtaken by Truthpocalypse. A video thumbnail caught her eye. President Cooper at his earlier press conference. She clicked play. I'm miserable. You people ask the same questions every day, and I give you the same made-up answers because, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Karen snorted loudly, almost spitting out her coffee. He really said that? She muttered. Over in the cubicle next to her, Bob from accounting peeked around the corner. Hey, Karen, quick question. Do you actually like working here? Karen's mouth opened before she could think. No, I hate it. The meetings are pointless, my boss doesn't know what she's doing, and the coffee tastes like sadness. Bob nodded thoughtfully. Me too. From 3 cubicles away, a voice shouted, I was planning to quit next week. You guys want to grab drinks? The effects of the truth flare, as it was now being called, snowballed in scale. In a small diner in rural Texas, a waitress with a deep southern drawl plunked down a plate of pancakes in front of a truck driver. Here's your breakfast, sugar. And just so you know, I'm only nice to you for tips. The man grinned, unfazed. Fair enough. I only order pancakes because I don't know what half the menu words mean. At a luxury wedding in Los Angeles, the officiant sighed and looked at the groom. Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish her till death do you part? The groom, his face pale, replied, I think so. I mean, she's my second choice, but she said yes, so here we are. The bride's mother fainted. The wedding planner scribbled furiously in her notebook. Add contract clause, no weddings during solar flares. Meanwhile, in York City, subway commuters were enduring their own truth crisis. A man in a suit stood clutching the pole, muttering loudly to himself, I hate this job. I hate the commute. I hate you. He pointed vaguely at the entire train car. A teenager with earbuds removed one and said, Dude, I feel that. Across the aisle, an elderly woman nudged the man next to her. Your cologne smells like regret. The man sniffed himself and sighed. It was on sale. By 1 p.m., global corporations were in free fall. A major car manufacturer held an emergency press conference after an executive blurted during a Zoom call, Our new, innovative model is just last year's car with a bigger cup holder. Wall Street tanked as CEOs admitted their profits were inflated, their products unnecessary, and their customers gullible. We're doomed, a broker shouted into his phone as stock prices flashed red across his monitor. The economy runs on lies. Somebody unplugged the sun. Not everyone despised the truth, though. In a park in Seattle, artists, poets, and philosophers gathered in circles inspired by the honesty of the day. This is beautiful, said a man in sandals, eyes closed as he meditated. We're free. No masks, no pretenses, just raw human truth. His friend nodded serenely. Also, I've always hated your poetry. It's terrible. The man's eyes snapped open. Excuse me? Terrible, his friend repeated, like painfully bad. The first man crossed his arms. I take it back. Honesty is overrated. As the afternoon wore on, scientists scrambled to explain the flare. At Langley Observatory, Dr. Natalie Singh stared at the screen. How is this possible? The sun is a massive ball of hydrogen and helium. It doesn't care about our feelings. Her assistant pointed at a live feed of social media. Apparently the sun disagrees. Dr. Singh buried her face in her hands. I need a nap and a new job and chocolate. By the time the sun began to set, the world had changed, at least temporarily. Couples were breaking up and getting together. Friendships were strengthened and shattered. Job resignations were handed in by the dozen, often with notes that read, I don't like this job and I don't like you either. And somewhere in the midst of it all, a small group of scientists, priests, and therapists came together for a televised panel discussion. Is truth good or bad? The moderator asked. The priest leaned into the microphone. The truth sets us free. The therapist shrugged. The truth hurts. Dr. Singh shook her head. I wish the sun would mind its own business. As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, the world braced for what lay ahead. They were only halfway through the day of truth, and no one knew how much more honesty they could take. Chapter 3. The Political Collapse. The White House press room had become the epicenter of the truthquake. News stations across the globe were broadcasting the fallout from President Cooper's earlier confession in a loop. His face, sweating and exhausted, had been turned into every meme imaginable. Some highlights included, "I don't even like dogs," captioned with a crying golden retriever. Heads were allies, tails sanctions, over a spinning coin. A gif of him dramatically throwing his arms up, "I quit, but not really." By now it was clear the truth flare spared no one, least of all politicians. In London, Prime Minister Clive Bixby shuffled onto the steps of 10 Downing Street, where reporters bristled with energy like wolves circling a sheep. Clive's assistant whispered something encouraging, though that meant nothing anymore. "Good afternoon," Clive began, gripping his podium like a life raft. "Before you start, yes, I ate cake during lockdown. It was delicious. I regret nothing." The crowd erupted. Questions were hurled at him like rotten tomatoes. "What else, Prime Minister? What else have you lied about?" Bixby adjusted his tie and sighed dramatically. "Fine, I don't read half the briefings. They're boring. I skim the summaries because I'd rather be watching football." Gasps. "Is that it?" someone shouted. "No," Clive continued, his voice picking up speed. "I don't understand what the Chancellor of the Exchequer says half the time. He talks like a thesaurus swallowed a robot." A lone voice cried, "What about foreign policy?" Clive blinked. "We just copy whatever America does and hope nobody notices." The press room fell silent. Somewhere in the back, a camera operator dropped his boom mic in disbelief. Across the Atlantic, live feeds cut to Moscow, where General Dmitry Volkov stood at attention in a gilded hall. "Citizens," he began, his voice booming and authoritative. "It is time for honesty." He paused, as though bracing himself for his own words. "Our missiles? Half of them are duds. The rest haven't been tested since the 80s. We've been bluffing." There was a moment of stunned quiet. A translator coughed awkwardly. "And the military parades?" someone asked cautiously. Volkov's eye twitched. "We rehearse them with fake tanks. We don't have enough real ones to go around." A collective murmur rippled through the room. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is there anything you're proud of?" "Yes," Volkov declared firmly. "Our vodka is excellent." The camera feed cut abruptly. Meanwhile, the French president, Henri Moreau, stood elegantly before the press in Paris, his face a perfect mask of stoic resignation. "Good evening, citizens of France. I must confess," he sighed melodramatically, as only the French could, "I hate wine." Reporters froze. Pens fell from hands. One woman shrieked. "It tastes like fermented sadness," Moreau continued, oblivious to the chaos he'd caused. "Also, our national budget? A complete guess. We add numbers until it looks believable." A journalist fainted. Back in Washington, the president's staff huddled in the Oval Office, watching their leader collapse further into honesty. President Cooper sat slumped in his chair during an emergency TV interview. He looked like a man who'd spent too long in the sun, which, ironically, wasn't far from the truth. "Mr. President," the host said, clearly rattled, "what are you doing about this solar flare crisis?" "I have no idea," Cooper replied. "The scientists don't either. We've been Googling it all day." "You? What?" "Look, it's a flare. It flared. What do you want me to do? Call the sun and ask it to stop?" The host stared at him, slack-jawed. "And what do you say to the American people who are scared?" "I'd say, welcome to my world. I've been scared since day one of this job." The interview cut to commercial. As the afternoon wore on, truth spread like wildfire across parliaments, press rooms, and political rallies. World leaders became unwitting comedians, though their approval ratings plummeted to unprecedented lows. The Australian Prime Minister admitted to taking naps in his office during cabinet debates. "Boring ones, mate. What else am I supposed to do?" The Canadian Prime Minister declared, "Yes, I practiced my concerned face in the mirror before press conferences." And in North Korea, Kim Jong-un stared into a camera, shrugged, and said, "I don't even know why people listen to me anymore. I'm tired, too." Social media caught fire. Politicians became meme fodder. One clip of President Cooper saying, "I flip a coin," was edited into a video game mock-up where his decisions saved or destroyed digital cities. It hit 1 million views in under 10 minutes. By evening, the media couldn't keep up. News anchors lost all professionalism. "This is CNN," one anchor said, adjusting his tie with shaking hands. "I don't know what's happening anymore, and honestly, I'm faking it." His co-host snorted loudly. "I've been faking it for years. It's a paycheck." Viewers didn't even mind. Some found it refreshing. Others posted online, demanding business as usual because the truth was too much to bear. In homes around the world, ordinary people watched in horrified delight. Political meltdowns dominated every channel. Families huddled together on couches, eating popcorn as if watching reality TV. In one suburban living room, a teenage girl turned to her father. "See, Dad? Even world leaders are clueless." Her father stared at the screen and sighed. "Yeah, kid, and I've been pretending I know what I'm doing as a parent for 16 years. The girl blinked. "Wait, what?" "Never mind." As the day came to a close, trust in politicians reached an all-time low, yet global laughter reached an all-time high. For the first time in history, everyone agreed on something. The truth hurt, but it was hilarious. And somewhere, President Ronald P. Cooper lay face down on the carpet in the Oval Office, muttering into the fibers, "I should have been a dentist." Chapter 4. The Celebrity Reckoning. If politicians were the first dominoes to fall, celebrities were the next, and they fell hard. By mid-afternoon, the entertainment industry had turned into a battlefield of brutally honest confessions. PR managers hid under their desks, agents sobbed into designer handkerchiefs, and publicists clutched their phones, watching their careers disintegrate one unfiltered interview at a time. Hollywood implodes. At precisely 3 p.m., a live stream from the Late Night Show with Jack Draper began trending worldwide. Draper, the king of late-night banter, sat slouched at his desk, his usual charm replaced by the haunted expression of a man who knew his time was up. "Welcome back, folks," he said, staring directly into the camera. "Let's just get this over with. I don't write my jokes. My writers do, and sometimes I don't even understand them. Also, I haven't found any of my guests interesting since 2017. Gasps filled the studio audience. The night's guest, Oscar-winning actress Lila Monroe, adjusted her designer gown and smiled faintly. "Well, Jack, since we're being honest, I hated the movie I won my Oscar for. The script was terrible, the director was a tyrant, and my co-star," she turned to the camera, "smells like garlic and arrogance." Social media lit up. Lila Monroe roasting her Oscar movie? Iconic. Jack Draper's writers officially on strike. Truthgate. Moments later, the clip of her co-star, heartthrob Aiden Chase, appearing on Good Morning America went viral. His hair perfectly styled, his white teeth sparkling, Aiden leaned into the camera with practiced ease. "I know everyone thinks I'm a serious actor," he said with a fake chuckle, "but I've been coasting on my jawline for years. I've never read a script all the way through. I just show up, hit my marks, and cash the check." The interviewer stared at him, stunned. You're joking, right?" "Not even a little," Aiden said cheerfully. Reality TV, the unfiltered edition. Reality TV producers thought they were ready for anything. They weren't. At 4 p.m., a live episode of Housewives of Beverly Hills went catastrophically off script. Athletes everywhere crawled into their designer beds and prayed for the day to end. But the world wasn't done laughing or judging just yet. Chapter 5. The Ordinary People. While politicians crumbled and celebrities exposed their own fakery, the real chaos unfolded where it mattered most, in homes, workplaces, and neighborhoods. Ordinary people who prided themselves on minding their own business discovered they too were victims of the truth flare. And when the truth hits home, it tends to hit harder. Suburbia in crisis. At the Jenkins household in Greenville, Harold Jenkins was on his fourth attempt at fixing the leaky sink when he turned to his wife Sheila and said, "I don't actually know what I'm doing. I watch one YouTube tutorial and pretend I'm a handyman to impress you." Sheila stared at him over her cup of tea. "Oh, Harold, I know." "You do?" He blinked. "Yes, and while we're being honest, I hide snacks from you in the laundry room because you eat everything." Harold dropped the wrench, stunned. "You've been hoarding snacks?" "Caramel popcorn, the good kind. And no, you're not getting any." From the other room, their teenage daughter Emily piped up. "I'm the one who broke the TV last month, not the dog. I blamed him because he can't defend himself. The Jenkins family stared at each other, suddenly united in mutual betrayal. The dog barked twice, as if to say, I knew it. Across the neighborhood, in a cul-de-sac not far from the Jenkins household, lawnmowers sat idle as neighbors confronted uncomfortable truths. Larry, shouted Bob from 2 doors down, your lawn looks terrible. We all talk about it behind your back. Larry threw his hands in the air. Well, I think your wife's garden gnome collection is creepy. A collective gasp. Bob's wife, Helen, stepped onto the porch. Those gnomes have names, Larry. Meanwhile, Susan from next door, holding a tray of brownies, cheerfully confessed, I only bake these because I want you all to think I'm nice. I don't even like any of you. The neighbors stared. You don't like us? Bob asked. Susan shrugged. Not particularly. From the back of the crowd, someone muttered, honestly, fair enough. Workplace pandemonium. At Langston Enterprises, an insurance company in downtown Chicago, the truth spread faster than the office coffee machine could churn out refills. I don't actually read the emails, confessed Dan from HR. I skim the first line and hit archive. Margaret, the office manager, spun in her chair and pointed a pen at him. That's nothing. I pretend to be busy by opening random spreadsheets and clicking around. I knew it, someone yelled from accounting. In the break room, a mid-level supervisor named Jenny stirred her coffee with a plastic spoon. I hate motivational team-building activities, she said, her voice calm. No one is inspired by trust falls. We just hate each other more. From the far end of the room, a voice called, then cancel the team bowling night. Done, Jenny replied. I didn't book it anyway. A cheer erupted. Marital honesty, a double-edged sword. By 5 p.m., couples everywhere were teetering on the brink of marital Armageddon. In a dimly lit kitchen, Greg and Lisa sat across from each other at the dinner table. Greg nervously pushed peas around his plate. I have to say it, Lisa muttered. Your lasagna tastes like cardboard. Greg's fork clattered onto the plate. Well, your meatloaf tastes like regret. They stared at each other for a long moment before Greg added quietly, I love you, though. Lisa sighed, smiling despite herself. I love you, too. Just let's order takeout next time. Friendships tested. At the local bar, 4 lifelong friends nursed their drinks as the truth flare worked its magic. You guys are my best friends, said Mike, who was 2 beers in. But I hate our group chat. It's just memes and cat videos. No one ever answers my real questions. We answer, protested Jerry. You replied LOL when I asked if my dog was sick, Mike retorted. Fine, Jerry admitted. I didn't read your message. I just didn't want to seem rude. Tom, their quietest friend, muttered into his beer, I don't even like sports. I only pretend because you all love it. A stunned silence followed. You don't like sports? Jerry gasped. No, Tom replied. I watch the game for the commercials. You monster. The internet loses its mind. Online forums, usually cesspools of sarcasm and snark, had transformed into havens of accidental honesty. On Reddit, a post titled, Confessions During the Truth Flare soared to the top of the front page. Highlights included, I haven't washed my bedsheets in 3 months. I'm disgusted with myself. I never finished Game of Thrones. I just Googled the ending to sound cool. My LinkedIn profile is a complete lie. I don't even know what synergize means. In the comments, someone asked, why are we like this? The top reply reads simply, because lies are easier. Acts of honesty gone right. Amid the chaos, a few people found unexpected joy in the truth. In a park in Seattle, a man finally worked up the courage to tell his crush, I like you, a lot, and I've been pretending to jog here for 6 months just to see you. She blinked, surprised. You don't jog? Not a step. She laughed. I don't either. I sit here and pretend to read. Well, he said, a hopeful smile spreading across his face, want to get coffee and stop pretending? Sure, she replied, but I'm still going to tell my friends we met jogging. As night fell across the globe, homes buzzed with unfiltered conversations. Marriages were tested, friendships deepened, and neighbors glared at each other across fences, holding grudges over snack hoarding and lawn insults. In a small suburban living room, Harold Jenkins sat on the couch next to his wife Sheila. Between them, the dog lay contentedly chewing a sock. Well, Harold said, breaking the silence, at least we survived the day. Sheila nodded. Barely. From the hallway, their teenage daughter called, By the way, I failed algebra. Harold groaned and slumped further into the couch. Tomorrow, we lie about everything. And for once, Sheila wholeheartedly agreed. Chapter 6: The Global Fallout. By sunset, the world was a patchwork of chaos and comedy. Some people embraced the truth like it was an old friend, others fought it like an invasive species. Governments teetered, economies wobbled, and conspiracy theorists took a well-earned victory lap. After all, they knew the sun was out to get us. The world wasn't ending, but it definitely looked different, like someone had rearranged the furniture in humanity's living room and left us tripping over the coffee table. Stock markets. Honesty is bad for business. Wall Street hadn't seen carnage like this since the Great Depression. Markets opened with a thud and collapsed faster than a house of cards in a wind tunnel. At the New York Stock Exchange, brokers clutched their heads as honesty poured out of boardrooms and press releases. Tech CEO confession: our app doesn't do anything special. We just change the font every year and call it an update. Luxury fashion brand announcement: these shoes cost $10 to make. You pay $800 for a logo. Pharmaceutical giant disclosure: we mark up life-saving drugs by 4,000%. Why? Because we can. One reporter cornered an executive from the world's largest energy company and asked, "Do you care about the environment?" The man looked directly into the camera and sighed. Not even a little. By midday, shares plummeted across the board. A broker threw his tie across the room and screamed, "We built this economy on lies." Someone else shouted back, "We like the lies." The birth of the radical truth movement. Amid the global collapse, a few brave souls leaned into the chaos. By evening, hashtags like Radical Truth and Live Honestly trended alongside memes of crying influencers and confused CEOs. In Portland, a group of tech-savvy hipsters hosted a live-streamed rally in a park. Their leader, a man named Travis, stood on a wooden crate with a megaphone. "Brothers and sisters, we've been living a lie," he shouted. "The truth flare has freed us. Do you know how much energy it takes to lie every day? To pretend you like kale? To say you're busy when you're binge-watching Netflix? Enough! We reject the lie." The small crowd cheered. Someone threw a tofu hot dog into the air. "We must embrace honesty," Travis declared. "From now on, we tell the truth, no matter the consequences." "What's your job?" a voice heckled from the back. Travis paused. "I don't have one. I live with my parents." "Oh my God, you're 34, shouted another voice. "And I'm not ashamed," Travis yelled, though his cheeks flushed. The crowd murmured uncertainly. By the end of the rally, half the attendees admitted they were only there for free snacks. Conspiracy theorists rejoice. While most scientists scrambled to explain the solar flare, a subset of the population claimed victory. On live television, Frank Dugan, leader of the Flat Horizon Alliance, stood triumphantly in front of his chalkboard diagram of space. "I told you," he bellowed, "the sun is alive, it knows our lies, and it's angry." His co-host, wearing a tinfoil hat, nodded vigorously. "The truth hurts, but Frank's been warning us for years." A viewer comment scrolled across the bottom of the screen. "The sun doesn't care about us, Frank. Relax." Frank pointed at the camera. "That's what they want you to think." The public at war with the truth. In homes across the world, humanity grappled with its collective unraveling. In a suburban living room, two sisters sat on opposite ends of a couch. "You wore my dress without asking," one accused. The other shrugged. "I look better in it anyway." In a cramped London apartment, a roommate confessed, "I never liked your cooking. That stew last week tasted like feet. You ate 2 bowls." I was starving. Divorces spiked. Friendships shattered. On the other hand, some relationships bloomed. In a park, a shy man admitted to his crush, "I've had a crush on you for 3 years." "Oh, thank God," she replied. "I thought I was being creepy." Honesty, it turned out, was a double-edged sword. Global leaders try to regain control. As the day wore on, governments around the world scrambled to restore order. President Ronald P. Cooper, now looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in a single day, addressed the nation for the second time. He sat slumped in a chair, tie askew. "Fellow Americans," he began, "we are in a unique situation." He glanced off camera. Someone coughed. "Okay, fine," Cooper muttered. "We don't know how to fix it. We don't even know what it is. But my advisors tell me things will return to normal soon. Or they might not. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine." He rubbed his temples. "Look, all I can promise is that I'll keep showing up to work because I have no other skills. Thank you. Good night." The screen cut to black. a quiet resistance. As evening approached, some people refused to speak altogether. In one cafe, a barista put up a handwritten sign that read, "We are not talking today. Write your order on a napkin. Tell no secrets." The cafe was packed within the hour. Meanwhile, in offices across the country, employees communicated entirely via email. "Are you mad at me?" "No, I just need you to stop talking so I don't tell you how I really feel." It worked, for a while. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, people sat quietly in their homes, exhausted. Truth had done its damage, leaving broken egos, shattered illusions, and, for some, a strange sense of freedom. In one small apartment, a man stared at his wife. "You know what?" he said softly. "I'm glad we got it all out." She smiled faintly. "Me too. Tomorrow we can go back to pretending." And across the world, as darkness swallowed the sky, humanity waited for the dawn and for their beloved lies to return. Chapter 7. The Final Hour. As the clock ticked toward midnight, the world trembled in anticipation. Somewhere deep in humanity's collective subconscious, a primal hope simmered. This must end soon. It has to. The truth flare had exposed everything: politicians crumbling, celebrities unraveling, neighbors bickering, and marriages teetering on the edge of collapse. Now, as the final hour began, people fell into two categories: those scrambling to get one last truth off their chests, and those barricading themselves in closets, attics, or under blankets, praying the clock would run out before they said something unforgivable. Confessions of the desperate. In New York City, the subway system became an impromptu confessional. At Union Square Station, people stood on benches shouting their secrets into the void. "I take naps on the job and blame the intern," yelled a man in a pinstripe suit. "I only volunteer at the shelter because I wanted it on my resume," confessed a college student. "I don't recycle," sobbed a woman. "I just throw everything in one bin and pretend I care about the environment." The crowd gasped, someone booed, and another person muttered, "At least she admits it." In a small Los Angeles coffee shop, a group of friends sat together, faces pale and sweaty. "We have 40 minutes left," one of them whispered. "We can make it if we just don't speak." No one moved. No one breathed. The barista, clearly tired of the day's chaos, walked over with a sigh. "Your bill's $10, and by the way, I spit in the espresso earlier because you were rude." The table erupted. "You spit in my drink? You said I was rude? You've been giving me attitude all year." "Well, your Instagram captions are insufferable. I'm blocking you." And just like that, another friend group bit the dust. The race to silence. As midnight approached, people got creative. In London, a group of coworkers sat in their office, all wearing duct tape over their mouths, scribbling furiously on notepads. "I hate my boss. Your tuna sandwich stinks every day. You think I'm working? I've been watching YouTube tutorials for months." At 11:30 p.m., one coworker cracked. "You all think I'm annoying, don't you?" They stared at him, wide-eyed. "No," someone wrote on a notepad. Then, after a pause, added, "Yes." The man pulled off his duct tape and wailed, "I knew it!" A president's last words. In the Oval Office, President Ronald P. Cooper sat slumped in his chair. Aides surrounded him, armed with clocks and timers, counting down the seconds. "Mr. President," said his chief of staff, "we just have to make it 30 more minutes without a microphone." The president nodded weakly. "You don't think I can screw this up, do you?" "Sir," someone said flatly, "it's all you've done today." At 11:45 p.m., a reporter burst into the room. "Mr. President, one last question for the American people." "Just one." Cooper looked up, defeated. "Fine. What is it?" The reporter cleared his throat. "What's your favorite thing about this job?" The room froze. The aides waved their arms frantically. "Don't answer." But Cooper was already speaking. "I get free snacks." "Free snacks?" "Yeah," Cooper said, shrugging. "M&Ms, granola bars, fancy peanuts. Sometimes they bring cookies shaped like the White House. I really like those." The reporter blinked. "That's it?" "That's it," Cooper confirmed, reaching for a bowl of M&Ms. "These are pretty great." Social media's final confession online, people were typing furiously. In the final minutes, Twitter, or X depending on who you asked, turned into a confessional tsunami. "I've been using my ex's Netflix account for 3 years. He doesn't know. I pretend to be asleep when my kids call for me at night. I fake laugh at my boss's jokes. They're awful." One user simply tweeted, "I still sleep with a teddy bear. Fight me." someone replied. We're all too tired to fight anymore. The family reckoning. In a small suburban home, Harold Jenkins and his wife Sheila sat together on the couch, watching the seconds tick by on their wall clock. Harold glanced at Sheila. This is it, last call for honesty? Anything you need to tell me? Sheila shook her head. Nope, I'm good. You sure? She hesitated for a moment before blurting, I don't like your mother's casserole. Harold gasped, hand to his heart. But you always say it's delicious. I lied. He stared at her wide-eyed. It's okay. I've been secretly pouring hot sauce into mine for years. They both laughed nervously, and Harold pulled the dog onto his lap. We're almost there. Just a few more minutes. The dog barked once, seemingly to add, and I never liked that casserole either. Midnight. Lies return. Around the world, clocks struck midnight. The truth flare ended as suddenly as it had begun. A strange stillness settled over the planet. In living rooms, offices, and streets, people stared at each other, testing the air. Your casserole is the best, Mom, Harold said carefully. Sheila blinked, processing his words. Thanks, dear. I love your handyman skills. They exhaled together. The lies had returned. The morning after, by dawn, the world looked exactly as it had the day before. News anchors smiled brightly, politicians gave polished speeches, and influencers posted filtered selfies captioned grateful, honest living. The president addressed the nation. Yesterday was a glitch, a very interesting glitch. Let's move forward together, stronger than ever. The media reported it as a freak solar anomaly. Conspiracy theorists blamed aliens. Scientists shrugged. No one really cared. In cafes, parks, and boardrooms, humanity collectively decided to pretend the whole thing never happened. But somewhere in the quiet corners of people's hearts, a small voice whispered, the truth wasn't so bad, was it? And another voice answered, yes, it was. Final line. The world went back to normal, wrapped snugly in its familiar lies, and nobody ever brought up the day of truth again, except for Harold Jenkins, who still hid caramel popcorn in the laundry room, because some truths were just too much to share. Chapter 8. Back to normal. The morning after the day of truth felt almost suspiciously ordinary. Birds chirped, the sun rose, and humanity collectively dragged itself out of bed with the hangover of brutal honesty lingering like a bad dream. Across the globe, coffee cups were gripped tighter than usual, and cautious glances were exchanged over breakfast tables as people tested the waters. Good morning, Sheila Jenkins said to Harold as he sat at the kitchen table. Morning, Harold replied, squinting at his Cheerios. After a beat, he added, they're my favorite cereal. Sheila paused, spoon halfway to her mouth, and narrowed her eyes. Are they? Yes, Harold said firmly, though he avoided her gaze. Sheila nodded once and muttered, that's what I thought. The truth might have disappeared, but suspicion lingered. News networks spin the day at 9 a.m. sharp. News stations officially declared the previous day an anomaly. This was simply a rare and unexplainable solar flare, a confident anchor declared on CNN. Experts agree that the effects were temporary and unlikely to repeat. A viewer watching from home muttered, experts said the same thing about my cholesterol levels. Meanwhile, on other channels, Fox News, a day of chaos, but also clarity, what really happened during the so-called truth flare, BBC, was honesty ever truly necessary? Our panel debates. A conspiracy theorist livestream, the sun is obviously sentient, we warned you. By lunchtime, media outlets unanimously agreed. It's best if we all move on, and humanity, eager to bury its collective embarrassment, wholeheartedly agreed. In the offices and boardrooms by Monday, workplaces buzzed with forced smiles and stilted small talk. In the break room of Langston Enterprises, Margaret, the office manager, sipped her coffee as Dan from HR entered nervously. Hey, Dan, Margaret said, her tone overly cheerful. Great to see you back. You too, Margaret, Dan replied, eyes darting to the floor. Read all my emails this morning. Super productive. Good for you, Margaret chirped, though she scribbled, still skimming onto her mental notepad. At an insurance sales pitch that afternoon, a junior executive launched into his usual presentation. Our policies provide the best coverage in the industry, he announced, his smile a little too wide. One client in the back raised a hand. But do they, though? The executive froze. Absolutely, of course. The client stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment before nodding. Just checking. The entertainment world recovers. Hollywood moved quickly to erase all memory of the truth flare. An official press release from the Screen Actors Guild read, "Yesterday was a cosmic anomaly that caused temporary lapses in professionalism. We are actors. We do not coast on jawlines or hate our movies. Please ignore any statements made under duress." Aiden Chase posted a video on Instagram, his hair tousled just so, saying, "Hey guys, obviously I love acting. I was just tired. Thanks for understanding. Blessed." The video got 10 million likes. Meanwhile, pop star Jenna Ray tweeted, "I write all my songs. Please buy my album." It immediately hit #1 on the charts, and influencers, freshly tanned and well-rested, returned to their feeds with captions like, "New day, new me. Let's move forward together. Positivity only." No one mentioned the chaos of the day before, but everyone quietly remembered it. Families sweep it under the rug. In homes across the world, parents, siblings, and spouses adopted an unspoken pact: never speak of the day. At the Jenkins household, Harold sat in his recliner, reading the paper while Sheila folded laundry nearby. "I made meatloaf for dinner," she said casually. "Sounds great," Harold replied without hesitation. "I love your meatloaf." Sheila paused, watching him out of the corner of her eye. "You're sure?" "Of course," Harold said, flipping the page. "Best meatloaf I've ever had." The two locked eyes for a moment, testing each other. "Good," Sheila said, folding a towel with emphasis. "Great," Harold replied, though he shifted slightly in his chair. In the hallway, their daughter Emily muttered to the dog, "They're lying to each other again. We're back to normal." The dog barked once, sounding suspiciously like agreement. Global reflection. A temporary blip across the globe, people sat quietly with their thoughts. For a fleeting moment during the truth flare, life had been raw, uncomfortable, and strangely liberating. Long-held secrets had spilled out, grudges had been aired, and honesty, real, unfiltered honesty, had cracked open the facade of humanity. But now, with lies restored, people sighed in relief. In boardrooms, sales pitches resumed. In relationships, compliments flowed freely. In politics, speeches sounded confident once again. And the world, like a well-oiled machine, carried on as if nothing had happened. A final conversation. At a small diner in Portland, two old men sat nursing their coffees. "Strange day yesterday," one said, stirring in too much sugar. "Yup," the other replied, staring out the window. "You miss it?" The first man looked up. "Miss what?" "The truth, just for a day." The two sat in silence for a long moment before the first man shook his head. "Nah, too messy. Lies keep the peace." The second man sipped his coffee and smiled faintly. "Yeah, you're probably right." Outside, the sun shone innocently in the sky, as if it hadn't caused the biggest hiccup in human history. Life continued, smoothed over with white lies and polite half-truths, and nobody dared to look too closely at the cracks. Because, in the end, the truth may set you free, but lies let you sleep at night. Final line. And so the world turned, wrapped once again in comforting deception, as humanity whispered to itself, "Let's never do that again." The end. Thank you for listening. If you like the story, please subscribe and tell your friends.